The maid thought she was alone, but the rich man saw everything and was shocked. Martha's hands trembled slightly as she counted for the third time the stacks of bills spread out on the mahogany table. $50, $60, $70,000. Each bill represented hours of hard work, silent sacrifices, and a hope that could no longer wait. The wall clock read 2 in the afternoon, and she had checked 3 times that Sterling had actually left for the office. The Harrison house remained in absolute silence in that upscale neighborhood of New York City, only the muffled sound of distant traffic seeping through the windows with beige silk curtains. Martha organized the bills into neat piles, whispering numbers softly like a desperate prayer. $72,450. She was still $28,000 short of the amount that would change everything. Sterling Harrison stood motionless at the entrance to the living room, watching a scene that defied all logic he knew. He had returned to pick up forgotten documents and came across something inexplicable. How could a housekeeper possess so much money? In 5 years working in his home, Martha had always shown irreproachable honesty, but that amount exceeded her annual salary. Sterling's thoughts raced wildly as he tried to understand the origin of that sum. Could she possibly be involved in some scheme? The hypothesis seemed absurd given her exemplary behavior, but the reality before his eyes was undeniable. He took a cautious step, making the hardwood floor creak softly. The sound made Martha jerk her head up, her dark eyes meeting the boss's bewildered gaze. The blood drained from her face, leaving her pale as the curtains behind her. Her hands moved automatically, trying to hide the bills under the papers scattered across the table, but it was already too late. Sterling had seen everything. "Mr. Sterling, I was just—" The words tumbled out of her mouth as she desperately tried to find a plausible explanation. "Organizing some papers that Mrs. Cynthia asked me to review." Sterling remained silent for long seconds, his blue eyes studying her every move. Martha was a 42-year-old woman, brown hair always tied in an impeccable bun, and on her face, marked by life's hardships, there was a dignity that had always impressed him. Now, however, he saw only nervousness and something that looked like guilt. "Martha," he said finally, his voice controlled but firm. "Can you explain what papers those are that are worth so much money?" "It's not what you think, Mr. Sterling. Please believe me." Her voice carried a desperation he had never noticed before. "I would never take anything that wasn't mine. The Harrison family has always treated me well. I would never—" "Then explain to me where that money came from." Sterling approached the table, noticing how she instinctively stepped back. "Because from what I see here, there's more money than you would earn in 2 years of work." Tears began to glisten in Martha's eyes. How could she explain something so complex, so painful, without sounding like a desperate lie? How could she tell him about the sleepless nights, the extra jobs, the desperation that consumed her daily? The truth seemed more unlikely than any lie she could invent. I need to leave now," she murmured, quickly gathering the bills and stuffing them into a plain plastic bag. "Sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. Sterling. We'll talk more tomorrow." Sterling watched her hurry out the back door, his mind teeming with unanswered questions. That afternoon, he remained in the living room trying to find some logical explanation for what he had witnessed. He discreetly checked his valuables, but everything was in its proper place. Her jewelry, expensive watches, works of art, nothing had disappeared. His wife Cynthia returned from the spa at the usual time, chatting excitedly about the day's treatments. Sterling hesitated before telling her about the incident, deciding to wait for more evidence before making accusations. Cynthia had always liked Martha and would be devastated by any suspicion of dishonesty. During dinner, Sterling barely touched his food, lost in thought. Martha had worked in their home ever since they moved to the Upper East Side 5 years ago. She had always been punctual, careful, and respectful. Her references were impeccable, and there had never been any hint of trouble. Why would she risk it all now? The following morning, Martha arrived 15 minutes late, something unprecedented in all her years of work. Her excuses about traffic sounded forced, and Sterling noticed how she avoided his gaze. She focused on the household chores with excessive intensity, as if trying to make up for something through hard work. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, above all, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "Good morning, Martha," Sterling said when he found her cleaning the library. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, sir. Thank you." Her answer came too quickly, accompanied by a forced smile. "Sorry about being late today. It won't happen again." "About yesterday," he began, but she interrupted him. "It was a misunderstanding, Mr. Sterling. Those papers belong to my neighbor. She asked me to check some bills. I've already returned everything to her." The explanation came out too rehearsed, confirming his suspicions. Sterling decided he needed to find out the truth. That afternoon, he pretended to leave for the office but stayed watching the house from a distance. Martha left promptly at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, as she always did. Instead of taking the bus toward the outer boroughs where she lived, she headed downtown. Intrigued, Sterling followed her discreetly. She went into a commercial building downtown and only came out 3 hours later, visibly tired. Then she headed to another building where she stayed until nearly midnight. When she finally emerged, Sterling barely recognized her. Her uniform was dirty, her hair disheveled, and she was dragging her feet in exhaustion. The discovery left him perplexed. Martha worked as a cleaning woman at other places during the night. But why? Why would anyone subject herself to a 14-hour workday? The salary he paid was fair by the neighborhood standards, enough for a modest but dignified life. The next day, Sterling decided to confront her directly. He waited until she finished her morning chores and called her in for a conversation, in the room where it had all started. "Martha, I need you to be honest with me," he said, gesturing for her to sit down. "I know you have other jobs. I saw you yesterday leaving downtown at almost midnight." Her face drained of all color, and her hands began to tremble visibly. "Mr. Sterling, I can explain." "Then explain, please." His voice came out gentler than he intended. "I'm not trying to judge you, but I need to understand." Martha remained silent for long minutes, fighting back the tears that kept welling up. Finally, her defenses gave way, and the words began to flow like a broken dam. "My daughter." Her voice was barely a whisper. "My Chloe is 15 years old and she needs heart surgery. A surgery that costs $100,000. Sterling felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. Of all the possible explanations he'd imagined, this was the most devastating and, paradoxically, the one that made the most sense. "How long have you known about this?" he asked softly. 2 years. "The doctors said she had time, that we could wait, but—" Martha swallowed hard, struggling to continue. "Last week they changed the diagnosis. They said we can't wait any longer. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask for help?" The question made Martha lift her head, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of pain and wounded pride. "Because I'm not a beggar, Mr. Sterling. I've always worked for what I needed. My daughter is going to have her surgery with money I earned through my own effort." Sterling understood at that moment the magnitude of the sacrifice she had been making. 2 years of working endlessly, depriving herself of everything to save the necessary money. The image of her counting the bills took on a completely different meaning. It wasn't greed or dishonesty, but the desperate love of a mother. "Where is Chloe now?" he asked. "At the hospital. We had to admit her yesterday because her condition got worse." The tears finally began to roll down Martha's face. "The doctor said we have a week to get everything resolved. If not—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Sterling felt the weight of responsibility falling on his shoulders. "Martha, I want to pay for your daughter's surgery." "No!" The answer was immediate and categorical. "I don't accept charity from anyone, no matter how well-intentioned. I already saved $72,000 working honestly, and I'll get the other 28. "But you said there's no time." "Then I'll find a way." Her determination was unshakable, mixed with a pride that bordered on stubbornness. "I can sell my house, take out loans, work more hours, anything but accept a handout." Sterling admired her dignity, but he was also frustrated by her refusal. How do you convince someone to accept help when their pride is stronger than their need? That night he talked to Cynthia about the whole situation. His wife was shocked to discover that Martha had gone through all of that in silence, working exhaustively to save her daughter. "We need to help her," said Cynthia, her eyes moist. "How can she work so many hours and still take care of the house so perfectly? She's an angel." "She won't accept our help. I made the offer very clear, and she categorically refused." "Then let's find a way for her to accept it without knowing it's from us," Cynthia suggested. "We can pay anonymously at the hospital. She'd find out eventually, and she'd be furious with us for overriding her wishes." The couple spent the night discussing alternatives, but all of them came up against Martha's unyielding pride. How do you help someone who flat out refuses to be helped? The next morning, Martha arrived visibly shaken. Her hands trembled as she prepared the coffee, and she avoided any conversation that wasn't strictly professional. Sterling noticed how she constantly checked her phone, as if waiting for important news. Around 10 o'clock, her phone rang. Sterling was nearby and overheard her fragmented conversation, full of, "Yes, doctor," and "What do you mean?" When she hung up, Martha leaned against the kitchen sink, breathing heavily. "Bad news?" Sterling asked, approaching. "Chloe's condition got worse overnight. The doctors want to do the surgery as early as tomorrow. They can't wait any longer." Her voice was broken, heavy with despair. "But I still don't have all the money." "Martha, I'm going to resign today," she interrupted him. "I need to get the rest of the money somehow. Maybe I can get a loan using my house as collateral." "That's insane. You'll lose your house to save my daughter," she burst out, turning to face him. "That's the only thing that matters in the world. Chloe is all I have, all I am. If I lose my house, so be it. If I end up on the street, so be it. But she's going to have her surgery." The intensity of her emotion left Sterling speechless. He had seen many displays of maternal love throughout his life, but never anything so visceral, so absolute. At that moment, he understood that arguing with her would be useless. After Martha left for the hospital, Sterling made a decision. He called his lawyer and asked him to secretly contact the hospital where Chloe was admitted. He wanted to make the full payment for the surgery without revealing his identity. "Mr. Harrison," the lawyer said after a few hours, "I managed to speak with the hospital administration. They can accept an anonymous payment, but they need an official justification for their records. Tell them it's from a charitable foundation. Make up something plausible." "Understood. The payment will be processed today." Sterling felt relieved to be able to help Chloe, even if Martha never learned the true source of the money. At least the girl would have her chance to survive, and Martha could keep her pride intact. The next day, Martha arrived at work with an expression Sterling couldn't decipher. She seemed confused, almost dazed, like someone trying to process incomprehensible information. "How is Chloe?" he asked, pretending to know nothing new. "She's having the surgery today," she replied slowly. "But something strange happened at the hospital yesterday." "What was it?" "They said someone paid for the surgery, an anonymous payment from a foundation." Her eyes searched his, probing. "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" Sterling forced a surprised expression. "What do you mean someone paid? What kind of foundation?" "They couldn't tell me. Just that they received the money and that I can keep the 72,000 I had saved." Her voice carried growing suspicion. "Very strange, don't you think? A foundation no one's ever heard of paying exactly the amount I was missing. Maybe it's some organization that helps cases like Chloe's. There are many such institutions these days." Martha studied him for long seconds before slowly nodding. "Yes, maybe that's it." But Sterling could tell she wasn't convinced. There was something in her eyes that signaled suspicion, as if she were putting together a puzzle in her mind. Chloe's surgery was a complete success. Sterling learned of it through Martha, who arrived at work the next day with a genuine smile for the first time in weeks. Her gratitude was palpable, but mixed with a restlessness she couldn't disguise. "Mr. Sterling," she said at the end of the afternoon, "I need to ask you a direct question." "Of course, Martha. You paid for my daughter's surgery, didn't you?" The direct question caught Sterling off guard. He hesitated for a few seconds before answering. "Why would you think that?" "Because there's no such thing as coincidence in this world. A mysterious foundation no one's ever heard of, paying at exactly the right time, exactly the amount I was missing." Her eyes shone with a mixture of gratitude and anger. "And because you're the kind of person who would do something like that." Sterling sighed, knowing denial would be useless. Yes, it was me. What happened next caught him completely off guard. Instead of gratitude, Martha exploded in fury. "How dare you do that?" she shouted, her words echoing through the empty house. "How dare you override my will, my decision?" "Martha, I only wanted to help." "Help?" Her tears now were of pure rage. "You humiliated me. You treated me like a beggar incapable of taking care of her own daughter." "That wasn't my intention." "I don't care about your intention. What matters is what you did." She walked over to the table where she had counted the money days before. "I said I didn't want charity. I said I would get the money by working. But you thought you knew better than me what was good for me and my daughter." Sterling tried to step closer, but she backed away, keeping her distance. "Martha, your daughter could have—" "My daughter is my responsibility. My decision, my struggle, my victory or my failure." Her voice was broken with emotion. "You stole that from me. You stole my chance to prove I could take care of her on my own. But she's fine now. Operated on, saved. Saved by you, not by me." The words came out bitter. "For the rest of my life, when I look at my daughter, I'll remember that it wasn't I who saved her. It was the charity of my rich boss who took pity on me." Sterling finally understood the magnitude of what he had done. In his attempt to help, he had inadvertently destroyed something very important to Martha: her autonomy, her dignity, her sense of being capable of solving her own problems. "Martha, I'm sorry. I didn't think—" "No, you really didn't." She took an envelope she had prepared from her pocket. "Here is my resignation letter. I can no longer work for someone who sees me as a charity case." "That's unnecessary. We can work this out." "There's nothing to work out." Her decision seemed unshakable. "As of today, I'm done working here. And I want you to know that I will find a way to pay back every penny you spent on my daughter." "I don't want the money back." "But I'll pay it back anyway. I won't owe anything to anyone." She headed for the door. "Thank you for the 5 years of work. You've been a good boss, but now I need to go my own way." Sterling watched her leave, feeling devastated. His attempt to do good had turned into the exact opposite of what he intended. Instead of helping, he had deeply hurt the person whose strength and determination he admired most. Cynthia was equally shocked when she heard what had happened. She can't be serious about leaving. Where is she going to find another job that pays as well? Money isn't the problem for her, Cynthia. It's pride, and I trampled all over it. But you saved her daughter's life. Yes, but I also destroyed the image she had of herself. For Martha, being able to solve her problems on her own was more important than anything else. In the days that followed, Sterling tried to contact Martha several times, but she didn't answer his calls. He thought about going to see her in person, but respected her request for space. A week later, he received an unexpected visit. Chloe, Martha's daughter, was at his door. She was a 15-year-old teenager, too thin for her age, with the same expressive eyes as her mother, but without the hardness that life had imprinted on Martha's face. "Mr. Sterling," she said timidly. "I'm Chloe, Martha's daughter. Can I talk to you?" "Of course, come in." Sterling led her into the living room, noticing how she looked around at everything with curiosity. "How are you feeling? Your mother said the surgery was a success." "I'm great, thank you. The doctor said that in a few weeks I can go back to school normally." She hesitated before continuing. "I came here to talk about my mother." "Does she know you're here?" "No, she'd be furious if she knew." Chloe settled into the armchair, seeming more mature than her 15 years. "But I need to talk to you about what happened." "What did your mother tell you?" "Everything. About how you paid for my surgery, about the fight you had, about her quitting." Chloe sighed deeply. "Mr. Sterling, my mother is too proud for her own good." Sterling didn't know how to respond to that. Would it be appropriate to discuss an employee's problems with her teenage daughter? "She's always been like that," Chloe continued. "She'd rather fall flat on her face alone than ask anyone for help. When my father abandoned us 10 years ago, she could have asked for child support, but she said she didn't want anything from a man who didn't love us. Your mother is a very strong woman." "She is, but sometimes strength turns into stubbornness." Chloe looked straight at him. "Mr. Sterling, you saved my life, literally. If it weren't for your help, I could have... Well, I might not be here talking to you. Anyone would have done the same. No, they wouldn't. Most people would look at a housemaid with problems and think, what a shame. But they'd move on to the next topic. Her maturity was impressive. You cared enough to act. Sterling felt touched by the girl's words, but also confused. So why is your mother so angry? Because she spent 2 years of her life saving up money to save me. She worked 16 hours a day, ate only one meal to save money, didn't even buy herself a new piece of clothing. Chloe paused, emotional. To her, getting the money on her own was proof that she was a good mother. But she's a great mother, regardless of where the money came from. I know that, you know that, but she can't see it that way. Chloe leaned forward. Mr. Sterling, my mother is working 4 jobs right now. 4. She's killing herself to save up the $100,000 she wants to pay you back. She doesn't need to do that. Yes, she does. To her, as long as she owes, she'll always be someone who accepted charity. Chloe sighed again. But I have an idea. What kind of idea? Could you offer her a job? Not as a maid, but as... I don't know. Something that could make her feel like she's earning the money honestly? Sterling considered the suggestion. It was an interesting idea, but complicated. What do you have in mind? My mother is amazing at what she does. Your house was always the cleanest and most organized in the neighborhood. Other families have asked if she'd work for them too, but she always refused out of loyalty to you. And if you started some kind of cleaning company, she could work there. She'd earn money honestly, keep her dignity, and could pay back the debt she feels she has. The idea was brilliant in its simplicity. Sterling was surprised he hadn't thought of it before. Do you think she'd accept? If it were presented the right way, I think so, especially if she felt like she was helping others, not being helped. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Sterling spent the following days developing the idea. He talked to his accountant about the feasibility of opening a specialized domestic services company. The proposal was to create something that offered high-quality services for luxury residences, a real need in the market. 2 weeks later, he contacted Martha through Chloe, asking for a meeting to discuss a job proposal. Martha hesitated, but agreed to hear him out. They met at a neutral cafe, far from the Harrison house. Martha arrived promptly, wearing a simple but impeccable outfit, her hair pinned up with the same perfection as always. Her face kept the closed-off expression Sterling had learned to fear. Martha, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. You said you had a job proposal. I came to hear it. Her voice was professional, devoid of any warmth. I'm starting a specialized domestic services company, something aimed at high-end residences that need qualified and reliable professionals. Sterling paused, watching her reaction. I want you to be the general manager. Martha stared at him for long seconds before answering. Manager of what exactly? Of the entire operation. Hiring staff, training, quality control, client relations. You know the market better than anyone. And how much do you plan to pay for this disguised favor? The direct question didn't surprise him. Martha had always been able to see through subterfuge. $15,000 a month plus profit sharing in the company. 15,000. Her surprise was genuine. That's more than many executives make. Because you'd be worth every penny. How many people do you know who can work 16 hours a day while maintaining an impeccable standard of quality? How many have your honesty, your dedication? Martha remained silent, clearly processing the offer. Why are you doing this? Because I recognize value when I see it. Because I wasted 5 years having the best professional I've ever known, working only for my family, when she could have been building something bigger. Sterling leaned forward. And because I want to make up for my earlier mistake. This isn't another disguised favor, is it? It's a business opportunity. I intend to make a profit from this company. If you accept, it'll be because I see real potential for success, not out of pity or charity. Martha studied his expression, looking for signs of lies or manipulation. Would there be other employees? Yes. The idea is to start with a small team and grow gradually. You'd be responsible for putting that team together and training it. Can I think the offer over? Of course, but don't take too long. The sooner we start, the sooner we can grow. Martha left the cafe visibly shaken. The offer had caught her completely off guard. On one hand, it was an incredible opportunity for professional growth. On the other, she still distrusted Sterling's motivations. That night, she had a long conversation with Chloe about the offer. Her daughter, still recovering but far more lucid than she'd been weeks earlier, offered a perspective that surprised her. "Mum, you always taught me to recognize opportunities when they come along. Wouldn't this be one of them? But it might just be another way for him to try to help me out of pity. And what if it is? And what if it isn't?" Chloe held her mother's hands. "Mom, you're amazing at what you do. You always have been. Maybe it's time other people recognize that too. But $15,000, Chloe, that's a lot of money. Because you deserve a lot of money. How many years did you work earning less than you were worth? How many employers benefited from your work while paying you only a fraction of what they should have?" Chloe's words echoed in Martha's mind all night long. In the morning, she called Sterling and accepted the offer, but with one condition. She wanted a real stake in the company, not just a high salary. "I want to be a minority partner," she said during their second meeting. "Even if it's a small percentage, I want to feel like I'm building something alongside you, not just working for you." Sterling was impressed by her sharpness. "What percentage do you have in mind?" 20%. "I know it's bold, but I believe my experience and dedication are worth that." "Agreed. 20% of the company, plus the salary we discussed." The negotiation marked the beginning of a transformation in their relationship. For the first time, Martha felt she was on equal footing, able to negotiate as an equal. In the following months, Elite Estate Services grew beyond the most optimistic expectations. Martha proved to have not only exceptional technical skills, but also a natural talent for leadership and management. She carefully recruited each employee, prioritizing character and need over previous experience. "I'd rather train an honest person who needs an opportunity than hire someone experienced but lacking in character," she explained to Sterling during their weekly meetings. The team she put together reflected her philosophy. Dolores, a 50-year-old widow who needed to rebuild her life after losing her husband. Timothy, a 22-year-old young man who was raising his younger siblings on his own. Ms. Rosemary, a 60-year-old woman who had been let go from other companies for being too old. Every hire was a conscious decision to offer opportunities to people the traditional market ignored. Martha trained each employee personally, passing on not just cleaning techniques, but also values of dignity and professionalism. The company's success brought about a gradual transformation in Martha's personality. She remained the same principled, hard-working person, but she had gained a new confidence, a different way of relating to the world. She was no longer just a housekeeper struggling to get by, but a businesswoman building something meaningful. "You've changed," Sterling remarked during one of their meetings. "You're more, I don't know how to explain, more sure of yourself." "That's because now I actually own something," she replied with a genuine smile. "For the first time in my life, I'm building something that's mine too." The company grew to serve 15 upscale families, all referred by the first satisfied clients. The quality of service was unmatched, and Martha's team developed genuine relationships with the families they served. Chloe, fully recovered from her surgery, began helping with the company's administrative tasks in the afternoons. At 16, she showed the same work ethic as her mother, but with a modern perspective on business that complemented Martha's experience. "Mom, we should create a website for the company," she suggested during lunch, "and social media profiles. People look for everything online these days." "I don't understand any of that internet stuff. But I do. I can handle the online side while you handle the operations." The mother-daughter partnership added a new dimension to the company's growth. Chloe created a professional online presence that attracted new clients, while Martha maintained the quality standards that set Elite Estate Services apart from the competition. A year after the company started, Sterling was surprised to find he rarely needed to get involved in operational decisions. Martha had become a complete manager, capable of solving complex problems and making strategic decisions independently. "I guess you don't need me anymore," he commented half-jokingly during a meeting. "I still do, but in a different way," she replied. "Before you were my boss. Now you're my partner. It's a much more interesting relationship." The shift in their dynamic had been gradual but profound. The weekly meetings evolved from subordinate reports to strategic discussions between partners. Sterling often found himself learning from Martha's perspectives on issues he had never considered. "You taught me something important," he said during one of those meetings. "That helping someone doesn't mean solving their problems for them. It means creating opportunities for them to solve their own." "And you taught me that accepting opportunities isn't a sign of weakness," she replied. "Sometimes pride can be our worst enemy." The conversation marked a complete reconciliation between them. Their original misunderstanding had turned into the foundation for something far more solid, a partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals. 2 years after the company started, Martha finally paid off what she considered her debt to Sterling. He had tried to refuse the money several times, but she had insisted on paying back every cent of the $100,000 spent on Chloe's surgery. "Now I can look in the mirror and see someone who doesn't owe anybody anything," she said, as she handed over the final payment. "You never owed me anything, Martha. What I did was an investment in the future, not a loan. It made a difference to me. Now I can focus completely on growing the company without carrying that weight on my back." And grow it did. Elite Estate Services expanded to serve the entire west side of New York City, employing 42 people and maintaining a waiting list for new clients. Every employee received above-average salaries for the market, full benefits, and a share of company profits. "Our company is different because it was created by someone who knows what it's like to work hard and be undervalued," Martha explained in interviews for trade magazines. "Our employees are treated as qualified professionals because that's what they are." The company's philosophy attracted the attention of local media. Martha was interviewed by newspapers and magazines as an example of an entrepreneur who transformed personal experience into business success. Her story inspired other people in similar situations to pursue their own dreams. During one of these interviews, the journalist asked about her partnership with Sterling. "What's it like working as a partner of someone who was once your boss?" "It's proof that people can grow," she replied. "Both he and I learned to see beyond the roles we initially played. Today we are business partners who respect each other." The answer perfectly summed up the transformation of both. Sterling had learned that true generosity means creating opportunities, not handing out ready-made solutions. Martha had discovered that accepting opportunities doesn't diminish the value of personal achievements. 3 years after the incident that nearly destroyed their relationship, Sterling and Martha met weekly not only to discuss business, but to plan the company's expansion to other cities. Elite Estate Services had become more than a successful company. It was a model of how professional relationships can evolve into genuine partnerships. "Sometimes I think about what would have happened if you hadn't come home that day," Martha commented during one of those meetings. "Or if you hadn't had the courage to tell the truth about Chloe," Sterling replied. "So many things could have been different. But they were exactly as they needed to be. We went through the necessary conflicts to get where we are now." Chloe, now 19 and a business administration student, had become a key player in the company's management. Her modern vision combined with Martha's traditional experience created a synergy that drove steady growth. "My daughter will take over the company one day," Martha said with obvious pride, "but not because she's my daughter, because she's competent enough to do it. And because she learned from the best teacher possible," Sterling added. The company continued to grow, but always maintaining the core values established by Martha: dignity at work, fair wages, and opportunities for those who needed them most. Each new employee was carefully selected not only for technical skills, but for a genuine need for opportunity. "I'd rather give a chance to someone who needs to grow than hire someone who is already established," Martha explained to new clients who asked about her hiring policy. The philosophy produced exceptional results. Employees who were treated with dignity and respect repaid it with loyalty and a quality of work that surprised clients. Employee turnover was practically zero, something rare in the housekeeping services sector. One of the most emotional moments for Martha was when Dolores, the first employee she had hired, managed to buy her own house through the financing program the company offered to long-term employees. "Miss Martha," Dolores said with tears in her eyes, "I never thought that working in cleaning could get me my own home. You changed my life." "You changed your own life, Dolores. I just gave you the opportunity." But for Martha, moments like these were the true measure of the company's success. More important than profits or public recognition was knowing that dozens of families had improved their lives through the opportunities created by Elite Estate Services. "Our success is measured by the stories of our employees," she would say in lectures to other entrepreneurs. "Every transformed life is proof that our model works." Sterling watched Martha's growth as a leader with genuine admiration. The shy woman who used to count her money in secret had become a respected businesswoman, capable of inspiring others to pursue their dreams. "You've become far more than I ever imagined when I made you that first offer," he said during the company's anniversary celebration. "Because you offered me the opportunity to grow, not just to work," she replied. There's a fundamental difference between the two. Elite Estate Services had become a case study in business schools as an example of a company that combined financial success with social responsibility. Students regularly visited the facilities to understand how a small company could have such a significant impact. "The secret isn't treating our employees like family," Martha would explain to the students. "It's treating them as qualified professionals who deserve respect and opportunities for growth." The distinction was important to her. She didn't want to romanticize work relationships, but rather to professionalize them in a way that benefited everyone involved. 5 years after its founding, Elite Estate Services employed more than 100 people in 6 upstate cities. Martha had become a national reference in human resources management in the service sector and was invited to conferences and seminars across the country. "I never imagined my life would take this direction," she confessed to Sterling during a business trip. 5 years ago, I was counting coins to save my daughter. Today, I'm helping hundreds of families improve their lives." "And it all started with your refusal to accept charity," Sterling observed. "Your pride, which initially seemed like stubbornness to me, was actually genuine dignity. Maybe we were both right and wrong at the same time. You wanted to help. I wanted independence. In the end, we found a path that honored both values." The reflection perfectly summarized the evolution of their partnership. They had learned that true collaboration requires respect for the perspectives and needs of each party involved. Chloe, now holding a degree in business administration and an MBA in business management, officially took on the role of executive director of the company. Her first initiative was to expand the professional training program the company offered to low-income communities. "I want our company to be a gateway for those seeking dignity through work," she declared at her first meeting as an executive. Martha watched her daughter assume the position with indescribable emotion. The girl who had nearly lost her life to heart problems had become a leader capable of continuing and expanding the work she had begun years earlier. "Your daughter has an even broader vision than yours," Sterling commented after the ceremony. "Because she started where I ended up. She had opportunities I never had at her age." Martha smiled with obvious pride. "That's exactly how it should be. Each generation should go beyond the previous one." The philosophy of continuity and growth had become the company's hallmark. Long-time employees were encouraged to develop new skills and take on greater responsibilities. Several had created their own Elite Estate Services franchises in other cities. "Our goal isn't just to provide jobs," Chloe would explain in interviews. "It's to create leaders who can multiply opportunities for other people." The model proved to be sustainable and replicable. Each year, the company opened new franchises operated by former employees who had demonstrated leadership ability and commitment to corporate values. During a strategic planning meeting, Sterling suggested an even more ambitious expansion. "What if we created a professional training school, something that prepared people not just to work with us, but for the market in general?" The idea excited both Martha and Chloe. They spent months developing the project for an institution that would offer free courses in various fields for low-income people. It would be closing a cycle, said Martha during the project presentation. From the maid who almost lost her daughter to the businesswoman who helps other people transform their lives. The Elite Estate Foundation was inaugurated 2 years later, offering courses in professional training, entrepreneurship, and personal development. Martha took on the presidency of the institution, combining her new role with managing the company. "Now I understand what my true purpose was," she said during the inauguration ceremony. "It wasn't just to save my daughter or build a company. It was to create a system that allows other people to write their own stories of overcoming adversity." Sterling, present at the ceremony as an advisor to the foundation, felt deeply moved by the complete transformation of everything that had begun with a seemingly simple misunderstanding. "When I saw you counting money that day, I never imagined I was witnessing the start of something so great," he remarked during his speech. "Because great things often start small and quiet," Martha replied. "The important thing is to recognize potential when it appears and have the courage to nurture it." The Elite Estate Foundation graduated its first class with a 95% employment rate. Graduates found work quickly or started their own businesses using the skills acquired in the courses. "Every person who leaves here prepared to transform their life is proof that our model works," Martha would tell the new students. "You're not here out of charity, you're here because you have potential that deserves to be developed." The message echoed the values she had championed from the start: dignity, opportunity, and recognition of human worth regardless of social background. Years later, when journalists asked about the secret behind the success of the company and the foundation, Martha always gave the same answer: "We treat people the way they deserve to be treated, with respect, dignity, and trust in their potential." The phrase had become not only the official motto of the institutions she had created, but a principle that influenced other companies to rethink their human resources policies. Sterling, now retired from day-to-day operations but still active as an advisor, often reflected on how a moment of misinterpretation had turned into something so significant. "Sometimes the best things in life come from our mistakes," he commented during an interview for a business magazine. "If I hadn't gotten involved in Martha's life, maybe she never would have discovered her true potential as a leader. And if she hadn't confronted me about my meddling, maybe I never would have learned the difference between helping and empowering," Martha would reply when asked about the same subject. Their story had become legend in the New York City business world, cited as an example of how professional relationships can evolve into transformative partnerships when built on solid values. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to hit like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us, who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Elite Estate Services celebrated its 10th anniversary with a party that brought together employees, former employees, clients, and partners. During the ceremony, it was announced that the company had created a scholarship fund for employees' children to attend universities. "We want the next generation to go even further than we did," declared Chloe when announcing the program. "Education is the most powerful tool for social transformation we know." The scholarship program was funded by the company's profits, demonstrating that it was possible to combine financial success with social responsibility in a sustainable way. During the party, Martha was surprised by a video featuring testimonials from people whose lives were transformed through the opportunities created by the company and the foundation. Employees, former employees, foundation graduates, and their families shared stories of overcoming adversity that moved many of those present. "When I started working here, I had been unemployed for 8 months," said one of the testimonials. "Mrs. Martha gave me a chance when no one else believed in me. Today, I own my own franchise of the company. The foundation taught me not only a profession, but that I had worth as a person," shared a female graduate. "Today I own a beauty salon and employ 6 people from my community." Story after story demonstrated the multiplier impact of the initiatives created by Martha and Sterling. Each opportunity offered generated more opportunities, creating a virtuous circle of social transformation. "I never imagined that a discussion about money could result in all of this," said Martha during her thank you speech. "But maybe that's exactly how the best things happen. They start small and grow through the joint effort of many people. Sterling, moved by the testimonials and the magnitude of what had been built, made a point of highlighting Martha's fundamental role in everything that had been achieved. "I offered an opportunity, but it was Martha who turned it into something extraordinary," he said. "Her vision, leadership and values created a company that goes far beyond profits. They created a movement of social transformation." The party was covered by local media as an example of social entrepreneurship. Martha's story inspired documentaries, academic articles, and case studies in business schools. Months after the celebration, Martha received an invitation to speak at Columbia University about social entrepreneurship and transformational leadership. The woman who decades earlier had cleaned classrooms as a contracted worker now returned as a guest speaker. "It's surreal to be here speaking to you," she told the students. 20 years ago, I was cleaning these classrooms in the early hours of the morning. I never imagined that one day I'd be here sharing knowledge instead of just removing dirt." The lecture was an absolute success. Students lined up to talk with her after the presentation, interested in understanding how to apply her principles to their own professional projects. "The key isn't having large initial resources," she explained to those who approached her. "It's having clarity about your values and the determination to apply them consistently, regardless of circumstances." The message resonated especially with students from humble backgrounds who saw in her story proof that upward social mobility was possible through hard work and opportunities well seized. After the lecture, Martha was approached by professors interested in creating a permanent program where social entrepreneurs could share experiences with university students. "It would be wonderful to create a bridge between the academic world and the reality of the communities," she told the university's dean. "Students need to understand that knowledge without social application has limited value." The program was implemented the following semester, with Martha as one of the volunteer coordinators. Her participation ensured the program maintained a practical focus and social relevance. At the same time, the Elite Estate Foundation expanded its activities to include adult literacy programs and financial education for small entrepreneurs. The institution had become a national reference in transformative popular education. "Our goal is to attack the roots of social inequality," Chloe explained in interviews about the institute's expansion. "Poverty is often tied to a lack of access to quality education and information." The institute's programs attracted students from various regions of the country, creating a network of multipliers who carried the institution's methods and values back to their home communities. During an evaluation visit, officials from the Department of Education were impressed with the institute's results. Employment rates and business creation among graduates significantly surpassed the national average. "You've created something that should serve as a model for public policy," said the visit coordinator. "The methodology developed here could be replicated on a national scale." That observation planted a seed in Martha's mind. Could she expand the impact of her work even further through partnerships with the public sector? In the months that followed, she developed a detailed proposal to create a national network of training institutes based on the model she had built. The project called for partnerships with city and state governments to implement similar programs across different regions. "If we can replicate our model in 100 cities, we could impact thousands of lives every year," she told Sterling during the proposal presentation. "And what if we reach 1,000 cities?" he asked, always thinking big. "Then we'd be talking about true national transformation," she replied, her eyes shining at the possibility. The project was submitted to several government agencies and international development organizations. The response was unanimously positive, with several institutions offering financial and logistical support for implementation. A year later, the National Excellence Network was operating in 15 states, directly impacting more than 10,000 people annually. Each unit in the network maintained operational autonomy while following the core principles developed by Martha. "Seeing our philosophy spread across the entire country is an achievement beyond my wildest dreams," she said at the inauguration of the network's 50th unit. Sterling, present at the ceremony, watched with admiration the extraordinary woman Martha had become. The shy maid who once counted hidden money had become one of the country's leading voices in social transformation. "You've become so much greater than any company or institute," he told her after the ceremony. You've become a symbol that real change is possible when you have determination and the right values. We have become a symbol, she corrected. Our partnership proved that people from different backgrounds can work together to create something greater than their individual limitations. The correction reflected the humility that had always defined Martha, even after all the success and recognition she had achieved. For her, meaningful accomplishments were always the result of collective effort, never individual. During an interview on a national television program, Martha was asked what motivated her to keep expanding her initiatives after already achieving financial security and professional recognition. Because there is still so much work to be done, she answered simply. As long as there are people in need of opportunities, our mission will not be complete. The answer perfectly summarized her vision of transformational leadership. For her, personal success only held meaning if it came with positive social impact. Elite estate services continued to grow alongside the social projects, always maintaining the original values of dignity at work and opportunities for those who needed them most. The combination of business success and social responsibility had become the hallmark of every initiative associated with Martha's name. Our company proves that it's possible to profit while doing good, she often said. There is no contradiction between financial success and social transformation. In fact, each one strengthens the other. This philosophy influenced a new generation of entrepreneurs seeking to create businesses with a social purpose. Martha was often invited to mentor young entrepreneurs interested in replicating her model. The secret isn't in the techniques or methodologies, she advised her mentees. It's in the authenticity of the values you apply. People can tell when your commitment is genuine versus when it's just marketing. Her advice was always practical and direct, reflecting the experience of someone who had built everything from the ground up, facing real challenges and overcoming concrete obstacles. During an international conference on social entrepreneurship, Martha was invited to share her experience with leaders from several countries. Her presentation was considered one of the most inspiring at the event. Real social transformation doesn't happen through grand gestures or enormous resources, she told the international participants. It happens through daily commitment to solid values and persistence in applying them regardless of the difficulties. The message was translated into multiple languages and shared at universities and social organizations across different continents. Martha had become an international voice in transformational leadership. Upon returning to the United States, she found invitations to establish partnerships in other Latin American countries interested in implementing adapted versions of her programs. It would be incredible to see our methodology helping people in other countries, she told Chloe, but we need to make sure we can maintain the quality and the original values. Concern with quality was always a priority for Martha. She preferred controlled growth that preserved the essence of her work over rapid expansion that could compromise results. After careful analysis and preparation, the first international units of the Elite Estate Network were established in Peru, Colombia, and Mexico. Each country adapted the methodology to its local realities, maintaining the fundamental principles developed in the United States. Seeing our philosophy crossing borders and helping people from different cultures is exciting beyond words, commented Sterling during a visit to the unit in Peru. And it's proof that certain truths about human dignity and social transformation are universal, added Martha. The international expansion consolidated Martha's reputation as one of the world's leading references in social entrepreneurship. Universities in several countries began to include her case in business administration and social development curricula. 15 years after that afternoon, when she was caught counting money, Martha found herself in a position she could never have imagined. From a housekeeper fighting to save her daughter, she had become a successful businesswoman, social educator, and international reference in transformational leadership. Sometimes I still can't believe everything that happened, she confessed to Sterling during an intimate conversation. It seems like too big a dream to be real. But it's real because you made it happen, he replied. Every difficult decision, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt overcome, all of it contributed to getting you where you are now. The reflection made them recall the hardest moments of the journey, when the future seemed uncertain and the challenges seemed insurmountable. Both had evolved enormously since those early days of misunderstandings and conflict. "Our partnership taught me that real growth always involves initial conflict," observed Martha. "If we hadn't fought about my pride and your generosity, maybe we never would have found the right balance. And it taught me that truly helping means creating opportunities for people to help themselves," replied Sterling. "Your initial refusal to accept help was actually wisdom I didn't yet understand. The lessons learned over the years had become principles that guided all of their decisions. Personal experience had become universal knowledge, applicable to any situation of leadership or social development." Chloe, now married and mother of two, continued managing the company's operations, while Martha focused on educational and social activities. The generational transition was happening naturally, ensuring the continuity of core values. "My granddaughter is going to grow up in a world where women like you are benchmarks of leadership," said Martha, watching her daughter interact with her grandchildren. "That's real transformation, changing what the next generations consider possible." The observation touched Sterling deeply, who had also become a grandfather and often thought about the legacy he would leave for future generations. "I think our greatest legacy isn't the companies or foundations we created," he said. "It's the people whose lives were transformed and who now transform other lives." "It's the multiplier effect of good," agreed Martha. "Every person who leaves our programs prepared and confident will impact dozens of other people over the course of their lives." The concept of the multiplier effect had become central to the philosophy of every initiative they had created. The goal was never just to help isolated individuals, but to create agents of transformation who would continue the work in their communities. During a strategic planning meeting, it was calculated that the various initiatives created by Martha and Sterling had directly impacted more than 100,000 people over 15 years. Considering the multiplier effect, the indirect impact was estimated at more than 500,000 people. "Impressive numbers, but they still represent only the beginning," said Chloe while presenting the data. "If we maintain current growth, we can impact 1 million people directly in the next 10 years. The possibility of achieving real national scale motivated the entire team to seek ways to accelerate expansion without compromising program quality. One of the strategies developed was creating partnerships with large companies interested in implementing corporate social responsibility programs based on the elite estate services methodology. Several corporations adopted adapted versions of the programs to empower employees and the communities where they operated. "It's rewarding to see companies that once focused only on profits embracing the philosophy of social transformation," commented Sterling during a visit to one of those partner companies. "And it's proof that our model works in any context," added Martha. "The principles of dignity, opportunity, and human development are applicable regardless of the size or sector of the organization." The corporate partnerships significantly expanded the program's reach, allowing the methodology to arrive in regions where establishing their own units would have been difficult. During a conference on corporate responsibility, Martha presented a study showing how companies that adopted her methodology achieved not only better social outcomes, but also higher productivity, lower employee turnover, and a better market image. "Doing good isn't just a moral issue," she explained to the executives in attendance. "It's smart business strategy. Employees who feel valued and have opportunities for growth are naturally more productive and loyal." The presentation was met with enthusiasm, resulting in dozens of new partnership requests. The demand was so great that Martha had to create a certification program to train multipliers capable of implementing the methodology across different organizations. The certification program became a sought-after course for HR professionals, organizational consultants, and managers from all over Latin America. The methodology had evolved from personal experience into systematized knowledge applicable globally. "Seeing our experience turn into formal academic knowledge is surreal," said Martha during the graduation of the first certified cohort. "We started out trying to solve a family problem and ended up creating a methodology studied in universities. The evolution reflected the soundness of the principles developed over the years. What had worked in a specific situation proved universal enough to be applied in very different contexts." Years later, when journalists asked about the secret behind her methodology's success, Martha always gave a simple answer: We treat people as complete human beings, not just as resources or problems to be solved. The simplicity of the answer often surprised interviewers who expected complex analyses or sophisticated theories. For Martha, however, the best truths were always simple and direct. "We overcomplicate human relationships," she used to say. "In most cases, the solutions are simpler than we imagine. What's hard is having the courage and persistence to apply them consistently." That philosophy was reflected in everything Martha did, from complex strategic decisions to everyday interactions with employees and students. Her leadership was characterized by clarity, authenticity, and a focus on outcomes that benefited all parties involved. During an interview for a book on women in leadership, Martha was asked how she balanced professional success with personal life. Her answer revealed another facet of her practical wisdom. "I don't balance them because I don't see a separation," she said. "My personal values are the same ones I apply professionally. My family understands and supports my work because it reflects who I truly am." The integration between personal and professional life had been key to her sustainability as a leader. She never had to choose between external success and inner authenticity because she managed to build a career aligned with her deepest values. Chloe confirmed this observation whenever asked about having such a public and recognized mother. "My mother at home is exactly the same person you see in interviews," she would say. "That makes everything easier for our family." Martha's authenticity was one of her most striking traits, and one of the reasons her initiatives attracted so much credibility and support. People could tell she truly believed in everything she advocated for. Upon completing 20 years since that fateful day she was caught counting money, Martha decided to write an autobiographical book telling her journey of transformation. The book would be written in partnership with Sterling, offering both perspectives on the story. "We want to show that real transformation is always a two-way street," she explained when announcing the project. "I wouldn't be the same person without Sterling's partnership, and he too was transformed by our shared experience." The book, titled From Pride to Partnership, A Story of Mutual Transformation, became a national bestseller and was translated into several languages. The work offered practical insights into leadership, overcoming obstacles, and building transformative partnerships. "Our goal with the book is to inspire others to see conflicts as opportunities for growth," said Sterling during the launch. "Our story proves that initial disagreements can be the foundation for extraordinary partnerships." The book's success generated invitations for an international lecture tour, further expanding the reach of the methodology and philosophy they had developed. During one of these lectures, Martha was asked by a young entrepreneur about how to maintain hope in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Her response summed up decades of accumulated experience and wisdom. "Hope is not a passive feeling that waits for good things to happen," she said. "It is an active decision to work every day to create the changes we want to see in the world." The distinction between passive and active hope became one of the most cited concepts in her lectures, inspiring thousands of people to turn dreams into concrete actions. As Martha approached 60, she began to think more actively about succession and the continuity of her work. Although Chloe was prepared to take on leadership, Martha wanted to ensure that the transition preserved all the fundamental values. "My greatest concern is not with the continuity of operations," she said during a succession planning meeting. "It is with preserving the soul of the organizations we created." The concern was legitimate. Many social organizations lost their original essence when going through leadership transitions, especially when they grew beyond a certain size. To address this issue, Martha created a values council made up of people who had been present since the organization's earliest days. The council would have veto power over decisions that could compromise fundamental principles. "We want to grow and evolve, but without losing our identity," she explained when announcing the council's creation. "Some things are non-negotiable, regardless of external pressures." The governance model Martha created became a reference for other social organizations concerned with preserving values during growth and transition processes. On her 60th birthday, Martha was honored by the New York City Council as a distinguished citizen in recognition of her services to the city and the country. During the ceremony, she made a point of sharing the recognition with Sterling and the entire team that had contributed to building the collective work. This recognition belongs to everyone who believed that social transformation was possible and worked tirelessly to make it a reality, she said in her thank you speech. Martha's characteristic humility remained unchanged, despite all the recognition and achievements. For her, leadership was always about empowering others, not about receiving personal credit. During the celebration party after the ceremony, Sterling made a special toast to his partner of 2 decades. "To the woman who taught me that true generosity is creating opportunities, not handing out solutions," he said, visibly moved. "And to the man who taught me that accepting support can be a sign of strength, not weakness," Martha replied, completing the toast. The moment perfectly symbolized the evolution of a relationship that had begun with misunderstandings and grown into an extraordinary partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals. As the night wore on, Martha found herself talking with dozens of people whose lives had been impacted by her initiatives: employees, former employees, graduates of the institutes, business owners who had implemented her methodology. All had stories of transformation to share. "Mrs. Martha," said a young woman who had graduated from the institute years before, "today I own a catering company that employs 15 people. It all started with the cooking course I took here." Story after story confirmed the multiplier effect that had always been the central goal of all the work she had developed. Each person transformed was creating new opportunities for others, perpetuating the cycle of growth and development. "Seeing you all thrive is the greatest reward I could ever have," Martha told a group of former students who had become successful entrepreneurs. "You are living proof that our model works." At the end of the night, when the last guests had left, Martha and Sterling found themselves alone in the room where it had all begun 20 years before. The same mahogany table was still there, now serving as a decorative piece at the company's headquarters. "Sometimes I can still see you counting those bills," said Sterling, pointing at the table. "Who could have imagined that moment would lead to all this?" "Maybe it was just the right moment at the right time," Martha replied, gently touching the table's surface. "If you hadn't seen me, maybe we never would have had the conversation that changed our lives. Or maybe we would have found another way. People destined to work together always find a path." The reflection brought to a close a night that had been a celebration not only of Martha's 60 years, but of 2 decades of mutual transformation and extraordinary social impact. In the years that followed, Martha gradually transferred more responsibilities to Chloe and other leaders of the organizations, maintaining an advisory role and focusing on mentoring activities and developing new talent. "My role now is to ensure the core values are preserved while the next generation takes our work to places I can't even imagine," she said during an interview about her transition to a less operational role. The transition was carefully planned and executed, ensuring continuity without losing momentum or direction. The organizations continued to grow and strengthen under new leadership, remaining faithful to the original principles. During a visit to one of the network's international branches, Martha was moved to see how her methodology had been adapted to a completely different cultural context, maintaining its essence while gaining unique local characteristics. "This is the true test of an idea," she commented to Sterling, who was accompanying her on the trip, "when it can be transplanted to different soil and continue to flourish. Like seeds that fly far from the original tree but generate entire forests," he agreed. The metaphor captured perfectly what had happened to the work they had started. From a specific local situation, it had become a global movement of social transformation. At 65, Martha announced her formal retirement from executive activities, keeping only her participation on the organization's boards and occasional mentoring activities. "It's time to give full space to the new leadership," she said during the transition ceremony. "My generation planted the seeds. Now it's time for the next generation to harvest and plant even more." The farewell speech was emotional, but also full of hope and confidence in the future. Martha had built structures solid enough to continue growing regardless of her daily presence. Sterling, also officially retired but still active as a mentor, made a point of emphasizing during the ceremony that the true measure of Martha's success was the ability of the organizations to thrive without her. A truly transformational leader doesn't create dependency, he said. She creates other leaders capable of going beyond what she herself accomplished. The organizations continued to grow in the years that followed, validating Sterling's observation. Chloe and her team implemented innovations and expanded programs in ways that positively surprised even Martha. "They're doing things I would never have thought of," she said with evident pride during an annual review meeting. That's exactly how it should be. During her years of active retirement, Martha devoted time to writing a second book. This one focused specifically on women's leadership and social entrepreneurship. The work became a reference text in management and social development courses. "I want other women to see that it's possible to turn difficult experiences into strength to lead positive change," she explained about her motivation for writing the second book. The work inspired a new generation of women leaders across Latin America, many of whom sought Martha out for mentorship and guidance. At 70 years old, during a retrospective interview, Martha was asked what she considered her greatest legacy. Her answer was characteristically humble and people-centered. "My greatest legacy is the people who discovered their own potential through the opportunities we created together," she said. "Every transformed life that now transforms other lives is part of a collective legacy that goes far beyond any individual contribution." The answer perfectly summed up the philosophy that had guided her entire journey, a focus on empowering others rather than self-aggrandizement. Sterling, now over 80 but still mentally sharp, frequently accompanied Martha to events and interviews. Their friendship had deepened over the decades, becoming one of the most significant relationships in both their lives. "Our partnership proves that people from completely different backgrounds can create something extraordinary when they have shared values and a genuine commitment to making a difference," he said during one of their last joint interviews. The organizations they created continued to grow and evolve, always maintaining their core principles while adapting their methods to contemporary realities. The methodology had become a permanent part of the social development vocabulary in Latin America. During a 25-year ceremony for elite estate services, impressive data was presented on the accumulated impact of the initiatives. More than 500,000 people directly impacted, more than 5,000 ventures created by program graduates, and a presence in over 200 cities across 15 countries. "Numbers that represent much more than statistics," said Chloe during the presentation. "They represent families that improved their lives, communities that grew stronger, countries that developed." Martha, present as the guest of honor, watched the presentation with deep satisfaction, but without excessive pride. For her, the numbers confirmed that she had made the right choices, but they also reminded her that there was still much work to be done. "We celebrate what we've achieved, but without forgetting that our mission continues," she said in her speech during the ceremony. "As long as there is inequality and people without opportunities, our work will not be complete." The message motivated the audience to continue expanding and refining the programs, keeping alive the flame of social transformation that Martha had ignited decades earlier. In the final years of her active life, Martha devoted herself especially to mentoring young social leaders from different countries. Her home became a gathering place for social entrepreneurs seeking guidance and inspiration. "Receiving these young people full of energy and ideas keeps me connected to the future," she would say. "They constantly remind me that each generation has the potential to go beyond the one before it." The young people who went through her mentorship often became multipliers of her methodology in their regions of origin, further expanding the reach of the principles she had developed. During one of her last public talks at 75 years old, Martha was asked what advice she would give to her younger self, that woman who desperately counted money more than 3 decades earlier. "I would tell her to have the courage to dream bigger," she replied after a long pause. "Back then, I only wanted to save my daughter. I never imagined I could help save thousands of other families too." The answer moved the audience and became one of her most quoted phrases, inspiring people to expand their ambitions beyond immediate needs to include broader social impact. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this incredible journey of transformation. Did Martha make the right decisions throughout her life? Do you believe that pride can be both a strength and a weakness? Share your opinion in the comments with your honest words. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one.